Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. This is our attempt at giving all of you a moment with Buster and Coach on a very, very busy weekend. It's a pleasure to have you here. It's a pleasure to have the video cameras running and the radio folks with us. Many of you know the story of Buster Olney, so I will be brief. Buster appears on ESPN, I think nightly, but I see him most often on Sunday night. He's been to Northern State many times. I think he knows the Barnett Center almost as well as I do now. And he famously authored the book about Coach Meyer, How Lucky You Can Be, and has made Aberdeen his second home. So it's great to have him back. It's great to have him here, and we're anxious to see what he'll share with us tomorrow, although it is a highly guarded secret. I have no idea. Two people have asked me today, what's he going to talk about? I said, come tomorrow and you will find out. I do not know, and I think that adds to the excitement. And I like the line that people who are going to be there should be the ones that hear the speech. So I certainly agree with that. Buster and Coach Meyer are friends. Not only did they work on the book together, they've become friends, and they've known each other since Buster was a writer in Nashville, which was more than a year or two ago, and Coach was there as the head basketball coach at Lipscomb University. Many of you know Don. I don't have to say a lot about him. He will argue with me no matter how I introduce him. I do have the right number of wins here because I made Brenda write it down for me. 923 wins. Retired as the winningest coach in Division I, II, and III, and is now Special Assistant to the President. And if you all can tell me exactly what he does as Special Assistant to the President, I'll be interested in knowing what that is. But I do know one thing. I asked him to help the senior cabinet. Mr. Jordry's here in the audience. And I said, Don, would you help the senior cabinet find a commencement speaker for us? He said, I can do that. I don't think he could have done any better than finding Buster Olney. So I will get out of the way, let these two gentlemen share their thoughts with you. Thank you for being here.
Go ahead, Coach.
What am I supposed to say?
Opening remarks. Come on.
I don't have any.
You're not going to respond to what he just said about you with the special assistant?
One of the greatest things in my life is going to Las Vegas and seeing Louis Anderson, the comedian. And when he works with a microphone, it's like he's in love with it. And he's from Minnesota. He said whenever it would snow, his dad would say, go out and scoop the snow. He said, Dad, it's not even an inch yet. And he said, you got to stay ahead of the snow. You got to stay ahead of the snow. I don't know what that has to do with this, Buster, but you're next.
Well, I was telling a reporter the other day that, when Coach Meyer called me and was like, they'd like you to do this, I mean, part of my response is something you talk about, I'm going to talk more about yesterday, which is, shoot, I'm a dopey sports writer, and what the heck could I have to offer? But it definitely felt like being called, if you're in federal government, to getting called by the president. I mean, when he calls you and asks you to do that, that's something you're definitely going to want to do, especially since it does feel like, you're being called home. Even though I, grew up in Central Vermont, this area is very much like what I had growing up in Central Vermont in terms of being a small town feel. Although I was joking to people today here that Aberdeen is like a metropolis compared to where I grew up, because we had 400 people and we had no stoplights. We had only one stop sign. But always excited to come back here, and I have a trip planned here again later this summer. But it's great to be able to do this, and it was a great honor to be asked.
Guess we'll open it up for questions. Is Nate here to ask questions?
Well, my sister, the book that I did on Coach Meyer is dedicated to my sister Amelia, who has been fighting leukemia the last 3 years. She actually is currently cancer-free, but one of my great goals was for her to meet Coach Meyer. She's never met him. And, last summer she was really deep in her fight, and we didn't know if she'd get through it. And I talked to her about that, and I said, if everything goes well, and she had a cord blood transplant I said, I want to get you out to South Dakota so you can meet Coach Meyer. And so she's come through it, and she's currently cancer-free. And so we are scheduling a trip out here in August and trying to hit the Brown County Fair. Now, Amelia is a vegetarian, and I don't know if she'd approve of the Tubby Burger. But I think she'll have a great time with Coach Meyer. And what's so interesting for me is that when I was working on the book on Coach Meyer, it was literally that spring when I was writing the book on Coach Meyer is when Amelia had been diagnosed first with her leukemia. But, I'd share notes with both of them about the other and what they were doing with their respective fights against cancer. So that's part of the reason why it's going to be really special to me for Amelia to come out here.
I know you won't give away much of what you're going to talk about at commencement, but do you remember your commencement speech that you had to sit through as a student, and where you sit there thinking, man, if I ever had the opportunity to do this, I could do it better than that?
I can promise you I didn't think that because I didn't go to my graduation. I was in and out. My parents had no money, and it took me a long time to get my degree at Vanderbilt, with a lot of help from a lot of other people financially. And so I already had a full-time job when graduation came around, and I was working. And so I didn't go to mine at Vanderbilt. It had never occurred to me to, that I would get a chance to do something like this. And as soon as I got, the invitation, I began to ask a lot of people, and I've been asking a lot of people, what advice do you have? What advice do you have for something like this? And you mentioned, not giving it away. The other day, I was on the other end of being a reporter, where I spoke to a reporter the other day, and he kept on saying, well, what are you going to talk about? Can you give me a hint? I'm like, no, I really don't want to give you a hint. I really don't want to tell you out of respect for people who I talk to, and to save it for the graduates in the room. But I drew a lot on what people told me about what was important, and I mentioned it was in the paper here that I was told by every person I talked to, keep in mind, all these kids are ready to get out of there. They are ready to get on with the rest of their lives, and tell them at the beginning that you're not going to take up too much of their time. So I will definitely be doing that.
Now, something Buster didn't say about going to Vanderbilt. He applied for a really tough thing to get some kind of scholarship. There were 3 people he was in the finals with 3 people. Didn't win it, but he still wanted to go, so he started. And there's a saying we always use in our leadership tours. They knew he was going to be a great coach long before they called him Bear. And Bear Bryant was an assistant at Vanderbilt. And somebody there knew that he was going to be a great coach long before they called him Buster, a great writer. And that was the people at the banner. Fred Russell was, phenomenal sports writer, and he saw greatness in him. And then a guy named, was it Sigenthaler? That
Irby Simpkins.
Irby Simpkins just basically paid for his school and paid him to work and got him working with the banner. Sort of like they do with these rookies out of Costa Rica and the Dominican. They get them and give them about $750, teach them the language, and out of 1,000, they'll get one that gets to the bigs. But they could see he had it, and that's why he'll never say that. But I knew he had it when he covered us. I knew the first day he covered us at Lipscomb that he had it. He was going to be great because he's so thorough. It's scary how thorough he is.
Can you give us a little update on the Duck Dynasty trip down to Lipscomb?
Cy is worse in real life than he is in TV. They've got a Cy Cup out now. Some little kid bought it for little Buddy. So little Buddy's got a Cy Cup. It's got Cy's picture on it and everything. They're selling them. They bought 10,000 books. They sold most of them. They'll probably be the only people ever be number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list, and they haven't even got the book out for sale yet. They're just, I'll tell you what, they're great people. They're for real. I've never been big on this crap, but if Phil Robertson does it, it's good enough for me. You know what I mean? And if Cy does this, it's good enough for me. They're really great people. But the line of the night was, they asked Miss Kay. Miss Kay says, "Phil, I've been married to you when we were really poor, and I've been married to you when we were really rich. And I'll tell you, Phil, I like being really rich better being married to you."
Why did you want to ask Buster to do yes?
We couldn't find anybody else. I mean, we were trying to get, third world dictators. We had Hugo Chavez, but he was not feeling good at that time, and
Yeah, I'm well aware that O is toward the back end of the phone book. They had gone through a lot of names, I bet.
no, I just thought he'd be great, and I thought it was just a natural, because he loves Aberdeen, and he lives at a place where you don't even want to know what the property taxes are. It's the worst in the United States, but you'd never know it when you're in his house. Just like being in Aberdeen, dogs all over, cat hair. I couldn't sleep for months after sleeping with his dog. What was that dog's name?
Penny.
She didn't even tell me what her name was. But I was getting to like her. He's just a great guy, and these kids need to hear a great guy. And anything he does is excellent. So there's no fear of that. And anybody that's academic and doesn't respect him, they need to do what he does for a while, and they think again. And anybody can get out of Vanderbilt, have the respect of the people there. He's something special.
Well, thanks. One thing for sure that I thought was, is going to be neat is that I know when I was working on the book, some of the people who are going to be there tomorrow are people that I've known who are graduating, and that's meaningful. In some respects, it feels like you're speaking directly to some of them. And these are, people who I got to know in the first fall. I was here in the fall of 2008, and then in years after, and people that I've kept up with. And the biggest thing is you just want to do something that is worthy of them on such an important day. Now, I didn't go to my graduation because by that time I was 24 years old, and it felt like I was old, and it was like that wasn't really my group. For these guys, it's something that is special, and you want to be worthy of them.
When you got into writing, Buster, did you set out to move into writing sports? I know now you're doing kind of everything. I mean, did you want to do everything?
No, I definitely wanted to be a sports writer, but then as time goes on, you want to write about people. And for example, when I worked on the Coach Meyer book, people asked me afterward about it, is it a basketball book? I said, well, it's a book about a basketball coach, but it's really a book about people, and it's a book in particular about this community and the way that they responded, when there was a need for help, and that really is what made it special, and why I felt like as a writer, knowing Coach Meyer, and I knew that was something I wanted to write about. Knowing his relationship with his past players, and then to have all of that affirmed by coming here and seeing how people helped he and Carmen, and seeing, even on the book tour after the book came out, to see the response to him. How long was that at the mall? How long was that line at the mall? It was, you were there for 8 hours.
Well, my legs started to grow.
Yeah, and for me, it's about I love games, and I can bore you to death with all this baseball statistics that I know, and make your eyes glaze over. But for me, the most interesting stories are always about people, and the challenges that they face. And I think through sports, you can really tell those stories well. Well, I got some help, actually. Brenda Dreyer gave me a suggestion, which I thought was really important because, as I say, you want it to be something that they can absolutely relate to. And so through her help, I was able to do that and to grab onto something. and so, you know, that was the biggest thing, is that you want to do something that is, you know, relates directly to them, to the students in the room, the graduates, as opposed to, you know, I didn't want to stand up there and sort of give a, you know, a lofty general thoughts that would have them pining for the post-graduation pizza. And I wanted something that was that they could absolutely relate to, and I felt very fortunate that through Brenda's help and the help of others, I got that. There's not really jitters per se, but you want, as they say, you want to be worthy of the moment, and you want what you say to connect with the people in the room, and that's really important to me. You know, getting in front of people and making a fool out of myself, you know, that's an inherent possibility in what I do. So that's not going to worry me so much. But you also want to find a way to honor and to touch the people in the room.
Your writing process for the commencement speech, what was that like? Did you find some similarities when you were writing a piece about, say, you know, a sporting event or a team, or was it a totally new experience for you?
No, it actually was a lot like different things I've done in the past, in that you want to get, the most important thing is the information that you get, and that helps you with the process of doing the writing. And so that was important, the information, to get that, and to get as much specific stuff as you possibly can. It's like being a reporter, because you wind up doing the same thing. You're asking the questions, and that's, you know, with that information, that's where you get the building blocks for doing something like this.
Buster, can you share a little bit what happened there?
Yeah, after I get done tomorrow, I'm going to throw out the first pitch, and this is a true story. When I was playing on the Wii with my 8-year-old son the other day, I think I injured my shoulder. We were playing a game of baseball, and I was doing a motion like this, and I felt something go on my shoulder, and the first thing I thought of was I got to throw out a first pitch at a baseball game on Saturday, and I do not want to bounce it. After that, I'm going to go to the airport, and then I'm flying to San Francisco. We've got the Dodgers and the Giants on Sunday Night Baseball on Sunday night, then taking a red-eye back from San Francisco, and then we've got baseball tonight on Monday night on that home camera that we have. I'm working on, I mean, we have the daily baseball stuff, but I'm also working on a book on a childhood friend of mine who is facing a death penalty in the state of Vermont. He goes up for trial later this fall. You know, he allegedly murdered his niece. He has a long history of crime, and it's it's a book about child molestation, and his two sisters are working with me on the book, and it's really like the project on Coach Meyer. It's really important to me to do this, and I knew that when this happened that this was something I'd want to do, and so that's probably, his trial will begin in the fall if he's convicted, and that's the belief in the state of Vermont for sure. Then the question is whether or not he faces a death penalty, and it's after his trial is over that I can really dig in and interview a lot of the people involved, because until then, any information you were to draw out in an interview, you'd be subject to subpoena.
You choose not to wear regalia. You'd rather just wear a suit. Is there a reason?
Well, I said to Coach Meyer today that, the whole question of whether or not you go with a cap and gown, I said to him, it's like the Masters. I feel like the work that you've put in, you've earned your green jacket. And Coach Meyer's earned his green jacket, and everyone on the stage has earned that green jacket. And if you saw my grades in college, you can know I did not earn my green jacket. and I that's why I feel like those are worthy of you, and they're not worthy of me. And so that's why when Brenda asked, I was like, that should be left to people who've done the work to get those.
So it's not true you thought John Kruk would make fun of you?
Well, he's going to make fun of me no matter what I do.
Okay.
And I suspect that, when we're in the meeting on Sunday morning, when we do have a production meeting for Sunday Night Baseball, they're going to be giving me a hard time.
You mentioned your home camera. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, in my house, as part of my work for ESPN, they actually have a camera in my house that's in my home office, and it's in a cabinet behind a door. Anybody who's seen the John Clayton commercial that ESPN has, that's the same thing that I have in my house, where I have 2 pull-down screens. One's for Baseball Tonight, one is for Sports Center. And so when they ask me to go on, I'll pull down one of those. I'll hook up the microphone. I might actually have shorts on. I've got coat and tie, suit and tie, and it's great. But then there's the fear factor that you're going to wind up a YouTube sensation, because I have an 8-year-old who sometimes argues with his sister. And, there's always been a concern for me that he's going to come bursting through the door during a live shot and be complaining about his sister. I worry about our 2 dogs that Coach Meyer mentioned, barking, coming through the door and barking because some deer is standing on our front yard. I worry about our cat Bart, who likes to jump up in the chair that I sit in for the live hits. So it brings a certain level of anxiety having the camera in the house.
You a little upset when they asked John Clayton to do it and not you then?
No, I loved that commercial was so great. I especially loved the whole thing with the ponytail.
You borrowed your Slayer shirt, right? Yeah, figure.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's kind of the way when those hits end. It's a lot like what you saw in the John Clayton commercials. A lot like in our house, where I hear in my ear, "Okay, thanks, goodbye," and I'll open the door and yell down to the kids, instead of "Mom, the segment's over," it's "Kids, the segment's over. Go back to fighting." Because I'll tell them ahead of time, I'm about ready to go on. I'll sometimes hear them arguing downstairs, and I'm about ready to go on, and I'll be hammering my foot against the ceiling, just letting them know. Remember, I have to do live television, and my 13-year-old daughter is very measured, and she's very careful. My 8-year-old is not, and I've always been fearful of him coming through the door. In fact, I was doing a live hit on Baseball Tonight early this year, and I'm in the middle of a thought on live television like this, looking at a camera, and I see his hand going distance, and he's waving at me as I'm trying to talk about the Houston Astros strikeout rates, because he was mad about his sister doing something to him. So. They were really happy with it in terms of, the phrase that they used were clean sale, that basically they've sold the books that they made. I think that, they were happy with the production. I think that, whether or not it has a second life depends a little bit on whether or not there's a movie. And I actually don't know that much about sort of where they're at in that process. But I suspect that if there's ever a movie done, that would be a thing where the book would probably get more production. The last time I checked, I think it was right around, somewhere in the range of around 30,000 in that, which is, in that realm is pretty, they were very happy with it. What's up with the movie? Have you heard anything?
Well, Nate wants Tom Cruise to play him. We just got the late breaking thing that came out today. No, they're just trying to raise money. I don't really know. They've got one big time guy that is really interested in the movie, and I think maybe for the right reasons. But it's hard to find a guy who can play a part and then have his leg cut off about halfway through the movie. None of those guys really want to do that. So I don't know what we're going to do. They don't want it like they used to out there. No, they're just trying to raise the money. It's a non-studio, so that means it's a lot less money to make it, and you have more control. And we're more interested in the control. So they're going to want conflict and stuff like that, but and that's fine. But we just want to make sure it helps people as much as the book did. That's our major goal.
Yeah, I know one of the things I'm asked all the time about it is people will ask, who plays Coach Meyer? And, you can definitely come up with some interesting names on that.
Yeah, but most of them are dead, like the Stooges.
If they write him in, Coach, who do you think would be good to play Buster?
There's only one Buster. I don't know. He's going to have to be honest, and you're going to have to work hard. You can't, I think the greatest coaching movie of all time is What About Bob? Because it's got a great team. All of those people fit their part. They play it to, even the people that are, when he blows up the house, those old people on the boat are just so happy. Dr. Marvin and the little kid that fakes Tourette's so he can cuss. And, it's quite a group. So that you got to get the right people to play the right. And it's like putting a team together. That is I think the single toughest thing in a movie is casting it and getting people that'll work together, because those people are, it's like putting Kobe and
Shaq.
Dwight Howard and Shaq on the same team.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah, I would love to see you as a consultant in a movie,
Yeah.
and to see you on set, and someone telling you the way they're talking to the players and giving instruction. You would have some strong thoughts on that.
Yeah. They sort of are a lot nicer to him, aren't they?
In what, on the movie? You think they would be?
In movie business, they are, aren't they?
I think nicer than when I remember seeing you coach for the first time.
I was just a young coach then.
He was really gruff, but the neat thing is that they were also open. That was was really neat for me as a young writer who was learning. Their practices were open. I think Coach Meyer's attitude has always been sort of a shrug of the shoulders, like we're not hiding anything. He's not trying to do some secret formula. I remember talking with one of the coaches that he coached against, Rick Bird, and he talked about how when Coach Meyer's teams, there wasn't any secret what they were trying to do, and they weren't trying to necessarily create some weakness in you. They were going to do what they did, and you were going to have to try to stop them from doing what they did. And so for me, as a young writer, being able to go to practice every day, and it just so happened that Lipscomb, their gym was about a mile from my house. And so I got to go over there, 2-3 times a week, and Coach Meyer would invite me down when they had team meetings. And, I have all his handouts in a folder back home in my office from when I was, 25, 26 years old. As I mentioned, that if you want to learn about Coach Meyer, I think just look at the players and the people that have come out of his programs, and how many good people there are, and the way that they, act in the community. There's a player who he wasn't a superstar for his team at Lipscomb named Richard Taylor. And you will not meet a nicer person, a better person than Richard. And whenever Coach Meyer goes back and has events, Richard hovers around him, and has such regard for him. And I've had independent friends who don't even know that I know Richard through Coach Meyer, who will talk about their neighbor Richard Taylor. And I think that really is a tribute to Coach Meyer as a coach. But it took me a while to sort of decipher the dry sense of humor, and that sometimes when he seemed to be mad at me, he really wasn't.
Take 2 more questions.
I'll ask a baseball question. Do you think the Twins will keep it up?
I don't. The Twins have done a great job this year in terms of what they're accomplishing so far. It really has been a surprise, given all the pitching issues they have, to get the type of performance they're getting out of guys like Kevin Correa. Because, and I'll have Coach Meyer do it again. When we were on the book tour, every time that I'd get asked about the Twins, and we'd be sitting at tables exactly like this. I'm sitting right next to him. And he heard me ask this question 50 times about what do you think of the Twins, and I'd talk about
They need power pitching.
they need power pitching, and that's what they need, power pitching. And last year when I was talking with Terry Ryan, their general manager, he said to me, he said, look, we need pitching, we need a lot of pitching, and I think they're still in that process. and it still feels like a bridge to the future, and they're buying time for when they're going to get back to being a team that like they were a decade ago, but they at least have recognized and started that process.
What do you think about the Tigers bringing Valverde back, even though Cleveland had such a proven track record as MO of, closer by committee with Pittsburgh and Florida? Do you think it was a little too reactionary after a couple hiccups, or what do you think?
No, I think, and Leland told me last weekend when we were in there for Sunday Night Baseball, look, the one thing we know is that he's not afraid. He's done it, and he's not afraid. And that's different than the other guys that they've had in that job. They've been trying this spring. Bruce Rondon, their young rookie, he throws so hard. And so Valverde may not necessarily be one of the best closers, but that team has so many other great elements to it. The rotation's unbelievable. The everyday lineup could be great. They just need a stable back end of the bullpen, and Valverde will at least stabilize it. Now, whether or not they'll be effective in the postseason is an entirely different question, but I think that they'll definitely be good enough to make the playoffs because of that rotation. I had fun last weekend. They asked us on our Baseball Tonight show, what are you looking forward to the most this week? And I was looking forward to the Tigers against the Astros. It's a giant science experiment because the Astros are so bad. And on the other hand, the Tigers have so many great starting pitchers. And I thought the over-under for the 4 games was 56 strikeouts for the Detroit pitchers. Well, they had 18 last night in the game 1 of the 4-game series. So, there's so much that's great about the Tigers.
The Tigers fan.
I gathered. We actually were at Central today. There was a Tigers fan there, and he asked 5-6 questions, Todd. He kept coming back to the point when every time he would ask a question, the other kids then they would groan. They're like, "Oh no!"
I must meet this student.
Yeah, he did.
Well, any more questions?
How do you juggle all your responsibilities?
Well, I mean, he definitely, and Coach Meyer is the king of this, the organization and staying on top of things and always sort of understanding what you need to get done and when you need to get it done and the process. Like today, we got a 2-hour break between 4 and 6, and I'm going to send out a bunch of emails to some general managers because we have a 12:30 show, Eastern Time show on Sunday, and I have to start the process for getting that along. And you just have to stay ahead of it. And plan and prepare as you're going through it. No, I was saying at the luncheon today. I feel like growing up on a dairy farm got me the perfect training for this job as a baseball reporter, because you're milking the cows twice a day and you're not getting a day off, and that's kind of what it is being a baseball reporter, and that's totally fine. What are you laughing at?
I just sort of imagine you milking a cow. By hand.
No, that was back in your time. In my time we had machines.
Yeah.
Buster will be speaking tomorrow at 10:30 at Barnett Center. Then he'll be out at the baseball game at 1:30 and then he'll be out of play. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Book signing now.
Okay.
Yeah. What have you heard on Garden Hill?